It's quiet. Too quiet. The lights are off. Your phone is down. The world has finally stopped asking things from you. And that's when it begins. Your thoughts. The ones you silenced all day. The ones you pushed past while replying to emails, smiling through meetings, scrolling through distractions. Now in the dark, they come flooding back. What if I said the wrong thing today? Why did they take so long to respond? Am I falling behind in life? Why do I feel so alone? And why can't I stop feeling? Your body is still, but your mind is anything but. It replays every awkward moment, every regret, every possibility of rejection, failure, or not being enough. You wonder, why does this always happen at night? Why does my mind turn against me when all I want is rest? And maybe you blame yourself. Maybe you think you're broken, weak, or just overthinking again. But what if this isn't a flaw? What if your nighttime spirals are actually revealing something your daytime busyness covered up? What if your mind isn't attacking you, it's trying to tell you something? In this video, we're going to slow down enough to listen. We'll explore why your thoughts feel louder at night, how your brain processes stress when the world goes quiet, and why your inner critic chooses darkness to speak. You'll learn how to reclaim peace at the hour you fear most, not by shutting your thoughts down, but by understanding them. Because your mind doesn't hate you, it's just carrying things you haven't been taught how to hold. And the night, for all its darkness, might be the place you finally learn to listen. Not with fear, but with compassion. The silence that unmasks everything. During the day, you're in motion. You respond, you adapt, you perform. Conversations, notifications, background noise. They all form a buffer between you and your inner world. And without realizing it, that busyness becomes a shield. A shield from what you feel, from what you fear, from what you're not ready to face. Then night falls, the noise fades, your body slows, but your mind accelerates. And suddenly, all the things you didn't process, they arrive. Uninvited, unfiltered, unrelenting. Because silence doesn't just bring quiet, it brings truth. In the stillness, there's nothing left to distract you from the stories your mind's been waiting to tell. Stories of doubt, of longing, of grief, of unspoken needs. Stories you muted during the day just to keep functioning. But now they have space. Now they echo. Because the mind isn't just a processor of information. It's a container of unresolved emotion. And silence is the moment that container opens. That's why bedtime doesn't always feel restful. For some, it feels like emotional ambush. The minute your body surrenders, your mind seizes the stage. It replays the conversation you regret. It resurrects the worry you buried. It reminds you of the thing you were trying to forget. And the silence that was supposed to soothe you starts to feel unsafe. But here's the important truth. Your mind isn't trying to torture you. It's trying to complete something. A thought, a feeling, a wound that didn't get time to heal. And it knows that when you finally stop, it finally has a chance. The thoughts that haunt you at night aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs you've been carrying too much alone. Because stillness doesn't create your pain, it reveals it. And maybe, just maybe, that revelation is where healing begins. The brain's need for closure before sleep. Sleep is not a switch, it's a surrender. And the brain, especially yours, doesn't surrender easily, even when your body is ready to rest. Your mind needs something else first, closure. You see, your brain is constantly scanning for what's unresolved, what's incomplete, what's been suppressed during the day. And when you finally lay down, without distractions, without demands, it begins its work, not just to rest, but to process, to review, to rehearse, to resolve. This is known in neuroscience as the default mode network, a state of brain activity that kicks in when we're not actively focused. It's when your brain sorts memories, replays conversations, and runs emotional diagnostics. But if your day was filled with unspoken thoughts, unfinished stress, or feelings you pushed aside just to keep going, then your default mode doesn't feel restful. It feels relentless. Your brain starts pulling up moments you haven't emotionally digested. The way someone's tone made you feel small. The thing you didn't say, but wanted to. The moment you doubted yourself and smiled through it anyway. To your mind, these aren't just memories. They're open loops. And sleep is difficult when the loops are still spinning. Think of your brain like a browser with 37 tabs open, each one a feeling you didn't name, a thought you didn't complete, a need you didn't acknowledge. At night, the brain tries to close the tabs, but if you don't give it emotional permission, it doesn't know how. That's why racing thoughts don't stop just because you're tired. That's why you lie in bed reliving moments from 10 years ago. That's why you feel like your mind is attacking you when it's actually just trying to clean up what you didn't have time to feel. This isn't dysfunction, it's a form of internal housekeeping. And the more you suppress during the day, the louder your mind has to speak at night. So the question isn't, why can't I sleep? It's, what haven't I allowed myself to feel? Because your brain doesn't need silence to rest. It needs completion. It needs acknowledgement. It needs you. Not to fight your thoughts, but to sit with them long enough that they no longer need to scream. The inner critic gets louder in the dark. You've heard it. That voice that says, you should have done more today. You sounded so awkward in that conversation. You're falling behind, and no one wants to tell you. It's sharp, unforgiving, and it rarely misses an opportunity to remind you of your shortcomings, real or imagined. But here's what's strange. It doesn't speak up when you're busy. It waits. It waits until your defenses are down, until the world is quiet, until the distractions disappear and you're finally alone. That's when the inner critic steps forward, and in the dark, its voice echoes louder than anything else. But why? Because during the day, you have armor, tasks, social roles, deadlines, humor, movement. You're in performance mode, functioning, managing, presenting. But at night, you return to yourself, and with no audience to perform for, you're left with the stories you believe about who you are. And your inner critic knows those stories well. It doesn't invent your shame, it repeats it. From childhood messages that taught you love had to be earned. From school systems that rewarded perfection over presence. From parents or peers who only paid attention when you got it right. Over time, you internalized those conditions. You built your self-worth on being impressive, useful, likable, unproblematic. But under pressure, even the strongest inner scaffolding shakes. At night, when there's no one left to impress, your inner critic asks the question you spent the day outrunning. Are you enough without all the proving? And because you were never taught how to answer that with compassion, you answer with fear, with judgment, with the recycled voices of people who never learned how to speak to their own pain. But here's the thing, the inner critic isn't inherently evil. It's protective. It believes that if it shames you first, you won't be caught off guard by the world. If it keeps you small, you won't risk being rejected. It's trying to keep you safe, just in the worst way possible. But you don't have to believe it. You don't have to fight it either. You can listen and still choose a different voice, a softer one. One that says, I hear your fear, but I'm not defined by it. Because in the dark, you don't need louder self-judgment. You need kinder self-recognition. And that begins with understanding. You are not the voice that shames you. You are the one learning how to speak back. The role of unprocessed stress and emotional suppression. You may not have time to feel during the day, but your body keeps track anyway. Every small frustration you brushed aside, every sigh you swallowed, every tight smile you gave when your heart wanted to cry. All of it goes somewhere. Not away, not forgotten, just stored. And where does it go? Into your shoulders, into your gut, into that tightness in your chest you can't quite name, into the racing thoughts that wait until the lights go out. Because emotions are energy. They don't disappear just because you don't acknowledge them. They simply wait, quietly, until your guard drops. And for most of us, that happens at night. You lie in bed, finally still, and your body, no longer in go mode, begins to release what it's been holding. Your heart beats a little faster. Your breath shallows. You feel an unease creep in, like something's wrong, but you can't explain what or why. This isn't you being dramatic. This is your nervous system speaking. You've spent the day in survival mode, functioning, pushing, performing. You didn't allow space to feel, so your body creates it for you. The sadness you ignored becomes restlessness. The anger you silenced becomes tension. The fear you buried becomes racing thoughts. And because it all rises up at night, you assume it's insomnia or overthinking or anxiety for no reason. But there is a reason. Your body is trying to finish what your day didn't allow to begin. This is why stress isn't just mental. It's physical, it's emotional, it's embodied, and suppression doesn't make it disappear. It just delays the response. You don't explode at the moment that hurts. You implode when you're finally alone. But the good news is this: your body isn't betraying you. It's begging you to listen. It's asking for space, for slowness, for the safety to feel what you couldn't before. Because emotions aren't problems, they're signals. And when you learn to meet those signals with curiosity instead of resistance, night stops being a battleground. It becomes an invitation to release, to feel, to rest without needing to fight for it. How to gently reclaim the night. You don't need to win the war in your head. You just need to stop fighting yourself in the dark. Because the night doesn't have to be a battlefield. It can be a return to slowness, to stillness, to the parts of you that didn't get attention during the day. But to reclaim the night, you have to shift your approach. You don't silence the mind by force, you calm it through relationship. So instead of asking, how do I make the thoughts stop? Ask, what are these thoughts trying to show me? That simple question changes everything. It softens resistance. It opens space for listening. It turns chaos into conversation. Here are a few gentle ways to begin that process. 1. Right before bed. Not to fix, but to witness. Take 10 quiet minutes to let your thoughts spill onto paper, not in neat answers, just in honesty. Let your mind know it has been heard, before it tries to shout through the silence of sleep. 2. Talk to your inner critic like it's scared, not cruel. That voice that judges you, it's trying to protect you, clumsily. Try writing a response that says, I hear your fear, but we're safe now. Offer reassurance, not rejection. 3. Create safety with your senses. Use dim lighting, weighted blankets, soothing scents. Your nervous system needs signals that say, it's okay to let go now. Because rest doesn't begin in the brain, it begins in the body. 4. Redefine what a good night means. Not falling asleep instantly, not quieting every thought, but showing up for yourself with gentleness and creating space where you're allowed to feel. 5. Practice imperfection. Some nights will still be hard, some thoughts will still rise, but the goal isn't control, it's connection. Because the more you meet your mind with kindness, the less it needs to scream for your attention. And slowly, you'll notice the shift. The bed no longer feels like a trap. The silence no longer feels like a threat. The night becomes not a mirror of your fears, but a sanctuary for your healing. You reclaim the night by reclaiming your right to be held, not by others, but by yourself. You were never meant to fear your own thoughts. You were never meant to dread the silence. But somewhere along the way, you learned to associate stillness with danger, to brace for battle the moment the world got quiet. And maybe no one ever told you, but you don't have to earn peace. You don't have to fix everything before you're allowed to rest. You don't have to silence your thoughts to deserve sleep. You just have to stop running, stop resisting, and start listening gently. Because your mind is not your enemy. It's your narrator, your protector, your witness. And it speaks loudest at night, not to punish you, but because it finally has your attention. What would change if, instead of shutting it down, you sat beside it? What if you let your thoughts be messy, your emotions be loud, your fears be human? And in that space, what if you gave yourself what you never got during the day? Compassion, understanding, presence. Because the goal isn't to silence the night, it's to make peace with it. So the next time your mind stirs in the dark, remember, you're not broken. You're just finally still enough to hear what's always been there. And that is the beginning of rest. Not the absence of thought, but the presence of safety. You deserve a peaceful mind. Not later. Not when it's all solved. Now.